Delight to know that you're somewhere watching. It is exactly 7 minutes past 6 p.m. by our studio time, and you're onto the program Matters on High Television. And of course, just like you know, Matters is a political debate program, but sometimes we get to stretch into the corridors of talking heated societal issues, economic issues, financial issues, and just what has been animating social media space and burning issues. That is what discussing. And today we have a very big animal on the table. I mean, something that happened recently about a sporadic shooting that happened in Meme chief in Kumba chief town of Meme division. It was a gory incident that claimed the life of unarguably 5 persons in Kumba. And of course, we are going to be stretching the tentacles of the program by discussing the Anglophone crisis that, to some people, it has been seen as deteriorating, while others think that, it is in a twist of fate, is gradually creeping to an end. And to discuss this burning issue with me, I have an activist, a humanitarian activist who is in the program this evening, Mr. Lucas Nji, who is going to be working hand in glove with me in making sure that he expounds on this topic and he brings his full weight of his intellect in making sure that the program is well animated. You're very much welcome, Mr. Nji Lucas.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. The program was sent to you a while ago, and it was something that was saluted with a lot of joy. Is it because it is something which happened on Monday, or it is something that has to do within the ambit of the socio-political armed conflict that has been raging for unarguably 6 years and counting?
We have been in Cameroon for 8 years counting in the armed conflict, which will have thousands of lives claimed already, and we still have more to be taken within the armed conflict, which is worth mentioning that it has attractions of several persons. Howbeit, what is most important, which I've always said, is the sacrosanctity of life is barely respected by the parties involved. There is no need for us to say that we have more than 2 parties in this armed conflict. We have 2 major parties in the armed conflict. We have the separatists and we have the government of Cameroon and the people of Cameroon entirely, who are for 8 years, they have seen the worst in the 2 English-speaking regions. The days of nationalism did not find any of the total number of persons killed compared to what we now have today in the 2 speaking English regions of Cameroon. Back in the days, if we should go back to the 1940s and 50s and the 1960s, when we were talking about leaving the colonial desk to why not find ourselves to our own desk, where we should call it nationalist desk or the national desk, we never had a soul taken. And today we are having an armed conflict for 8 years, and we are not fighting external forces. We are fighting ourselves. We have persons who have decided to do that which they will, other than that which should be on the table. That is, what do we have on the table and what should be on the table? What do we have on the table? We have the people of Cameroon, and what should be on the table? The peace, serenity, unity, harmony. You may want to list the rest with regards to what we should have on the table. And today we are talking about a goring incident that happened in Kosala, in the Meme division in Kumba,
Fiango,
where Fiango is the hub this time around for the death of 5 persons. And it is quite sad that we have some women who were involved amongst those who are now facing their creator. At the time they did not desire to do so, but because of the conflict and the people's ego, to why not allow people make choices as they would will with regards to the armed conflict.
Well, before we get to talking about conflict, you have spoken about the sacrosanctity of life. This is you bringing the activist version of you and the humanitarian part of you, which of course transits being beyond being just a political analyst. Do we have to talk about the sacrosanctity of life while looking at who is not doing what and which party is to blame?
Yeah, it would be fair for us to go back also and recount some of the things as efforts done by parties involved in the conflict. Someone may want to ask a question that what are the things the non-state armed groups have done with regards to this conflict? I think on the part of the non-state armed groups, what they have now accepted is education. Previously, they would refuse that children should not go to school. And today we have sporadic attack on education by the non-state armed groups, because there is a set of the non-state armed groups who believes that should children go to school, then normalcy within the two English-speaking region is in place. Like you said in your introduction, that others see it as a deteriorating situation, while others are seeing it as a gradual return to normalcy. And the non-state armed groups have a feeling, they have this logic that should the environment take it prior to 2016 state, that is Mondays, which were amongst the days people go to work, people
which is still
school,
maintained,
it could have been better. It shouldn't be, because they think that should we start working on Mondays, it would mean that they have lost everything with regards to the conflict. But I want to say that to the non-state armed groups, like I said, amongst every other thing which I can say they have done, it is the step they have away from the very strong step which was in 2016, 17, 18 and 19, 20 and 21, where they stood firmly against education until when they began having divided opinion with regards to how children should go to school within the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon. So this is the only thing so far which they have done. And their major worry is on Mondays, if you should go to school, he who is coming from school is equally attacked. And that is still an attack on education, and it violates the right to education of the children. So with regards to education, we can still say that for the last 8 years counting, there have been a violation of the right to education, in the sense that Mondays, if you go to school, you are attacked. Those who go to school, if they have to go out on certain national days to exercise
their civic responsibilities,
they are right in most of the times, because they have the right to association, they have the right to whatever they will, which is provided to them by the law. But what will happen at the end of the day is they will always be attacked. They also have their civic responsibility, which in some cases, days like 20th of May, which we will experience, which will be another lockdown day as will be designated by the non-state armed groups or the separatists. It will be another very challenging period of the people of these two English-speaking regions. So this is the only thing which we can say the non-state armed groups have had. They have a step away from their initial step. That is, among the 5 days which children are supposed to be in school, they have decided to take off a measured day, which is the Monday, the beginning of the week, as a day which we do not have to go to school. Now, on the part of the government of Cameroon, if you are to enumerate, you would have seen some of the efforts made by the government of Cameroon alongside some civil society actors. Of course, we should not forget that according to the government of Cameroon, the people wanted a special status. They wanted to have the life they have always wanted. The moment we came together, where the chiefs of this area, they had the assembly, we had the parliament, the Southern Cameroon's House of Assembly, we had the Southern Cameroon House of Chiefs, and other things that existed before we met, which was the reason why in 2019, I think it should be September 30th or so, we had the Major National Dialogue, which was announced on the 10th of September, if my memory keeps me right, of 10th of December 2019 by the President of the Republic, Paul Biya. So according to the Cameroon government, this is one of the things they have taken on the table or brought to the table as a major thing for us to dialogue on, for us to see. We have other issues which of course were quite professional issues, because apart from the Major National Dialogue which gave birth to the special status for the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, every other thing the government will say they have done with regards to this crisis is the professional grievances that was put on the table by the lawyers and the teachers. So with regards to what the non-state armed groups had claimed and some other persons in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, which I can say if you were to go by the census or go by the statistics of 2017, I think 30th of September, when President Paul Biya was delivering his speech at the UN General Assembly, about 95% of the total population of the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon were on the street to protest against what was happening to them. You have those images, they are there on the records, they are there on the internet. You saw old women of about 90 years of age were amongst the children who were about 5 years of age on the street, calling for other things which they thought the government of Cameroon was not doing for the people of the two English-speaking regions of the country. So as regarding or as concerning what the government of Cameroon has done so far with regards to this conflict, I think the only thing we have seen on the table is the special status. I know somebody may want to enumerate the other things done for the lawyers and the teachers, the translation of the OHADA text, the withdrawing of magistrates who were of French speaking, which we still have some in the two English speaking regions, it is worth mentioning. But with regards to the conflict, the socio-political conflict today that we have, or the crisis as some people will put it, the only major thing the government of Cameroon has done so far is the special status. Another thing somebody may want to...
Does this go to water down efforts by the national dialogue? Because on the national dialogue or the Grand National Dialogue, a lot was birthed from there.
A lot was birthed from there. We are looking at things which
were viable.
Which you could place your finger on. Now, the difference in all of this is for these offices to be in place and for they to effectively be in place. There are two things we have to look at. We are looking at the cause of the Goring incident in Kumba on Monday, 2024. We are looking at what, because everything that happened in Kumba on that day centers on the Anglophone crisis. And we have to look at how these things have been done and who is doing what and who is not doing exactly what is required. So when you look at the special status, you may also want to look at another thing, which is the Bilingualism Commission. Now, these are other things that were highlighted by the trade unions. You may want to pick out the teachers and the lawyers. Now, with regards to the teachers and the lawyers, certain reforms were made. The teachers had complaints that people who do not master English language or whose language of instruction was not English or whose first language of tutoring was not English, which they identified as a problem, this was put in place. We have the issue, though we still have teachers who are still French speaking and they are still within the two English speaking regions, and they will teach the English speaking children in the language they don't master, because we still have these things in place.
Especially at the universities.
Yes, we have this at the universities, we have this in other state institutions. So when you look at some of these things, now according to the government of Cameroon, the Bilingualism Commission also was created. These are all 2019 institutions. Was also created because the Anglophones had complained that everything in the country was French. Again, if you look at this, you will realize that text and other things, the Musonge Commission has often referred to, we have heard them severally we have heard them severally complain on this, that there is still a lot to be done as concerning translation and other things, because we still have text that will leave the parliament. For example, if you were to look at the Civil Procedure Code of Cameroon, it is the translated version. It was not the version that was birthed at the moment the other version was being put in place. It is the translated version. This is why sometimes when you look at certain things are set in it, both the Civil Procedure Code and the Criminal Procedure Code. Now we are looking at the Bilingualism Commission and the level with which it has come also to why not reduce the ongoing armed conflicts, to see, because we have two categories of persons. We have people who have issues with the way things are being managed in the country, and we have people who says they want to secede. Now, the Bilingualism Commission and the special status is not for those, is not for the secessionists. It is important for the people to understand this. The Bilingualism Commission is not for the secessionists. The special status is not for the secessionists.
But it came, however, upon the pressure from the Anglophone crisis.
Yes, these are all institutions created within the period of the ongoing Anglophone crisis. How be it, if you are to look at who wanted what, I am saying that the average Anglophone, the average person in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon complained about the text of Ohada, which was exclusively in French. We have the average Anglophone who complained about teachers teaching their children in language they do not master. We have the average persons from the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon who complained about the laws which could not be interpreted as the area which they find themselves would require. That is, if you listen to the lawyers, they said civil law or civil law practitioners were now sent as judges and state councils to the English-speaking regions of Cameroon, and as such, they used more of the civil law than the common law within the jurisdiction where they found themselves or where they find themselves. So some of these things, they have been put in place. Now, though being in place, one thing we must also remember is the fact that these things were not demanded by the separatists. So with regards to the issue of the separatists, which of course we should not forget that as concerning the separatists, the only thing the Cameroon government has put in place, or that which was put in place by the president himself, Paul Biya, is the amnesty granted to persons who think they were lured into picking up arms against the state to go to the DDR centers and give up themselves, and they need to be disarmed, or they need to demobilize themselves, and they need to also be rehabilitated so they can get reintegrated within the system. So these are institutions created within the context of the ongoing Anglophone crisis, which we have seen some of the people who had wanted to secede, such as the secessionists, going to this same direction. For example, we have persons who have confessed in time past. We could take a palpable case of Kawakawa Yani, who had actually repented. We have the case of Shina Rambo, as was often referred to, the brother of Mbashi Clement, alias No Pity, the famous, the self-arrogated General No Pity, who is said to have been killed somewhere in Babisi in the year 2023 or so. So you have, these are cases of persons who had said, we want to secede, but because of the opportunity given to them by the President of the Republic, who says, okay, lay down your arms, go to the DDR center and give up yourself there, or you may want to call, which is being interpreted by some of the divisional officers, some of the allies of the Northwest and Southwest regions, that if you do not want to be killed, or if you think you were lured into that which you're currently upholding, when you lay down your arm, or you can go to the DDR center or give up yourself, and you will receive the amnesty of the head of state. So we have different institutions. So we have the DDR. These are places created within the context of the ongoing Anglophone crisis, and for this center, it is for cessationists. We have the Bilingualism Commission. It is for the average Northwesterner and Southwesterner. That is, it is for the Anglophones who have not actually had the cessationist tendencies or the cessationist mindset, because these persons had said, we are not seceding, but we are not comfortable with the languages being taught in our schools. We are not comfortable with the things happening in our schools. We have the average or non-cessationist, I think this will be better, who now have the special status, because according to the cessationists, the special status is not what they want, because to this cessationist, except for those who are now enjoying the amnesty granted to them by Paul Biya, you have the special status, whom in this case, if I should put it that way, is another person brought forth by the Measure National Dialogue to manage the average English-speaking Cameroonians, or to manage the Anglophones, I think, which is the right word, or to manage the Anglophones, because they had placed issues on. We once had the House of Chiefs. We once had the Southern Cameroon's parliament. Now, another worry amongst all of this is because we are looking at what must have caused the death of these people in Kumba, and every other thing is tied to one fact: they were not supposed to go out on Mondays, according to the separatists. Remember that right now, 2 persons have firearms in the Anglophone regions. We have the state security forces, and we have the separatists. These are the 2 set of persons with firearms. We have one which is legitimate by the law of Cameroon, or the laws in the country. We have one which is not actually legitimate. I think if you were to go to Article 63 or so of the Penal Code, you would have seen there it is stated that anyone who picks up arm without any due approval by the state or things like that, you have what happens to you in a situation like this. I think you have up to 20 years or so to be sentenced in prison, things like that. So when you look at these things, you realize that those who were killed on Monday, it is said they were caught in crossfire. It is said the separatists came and targeted a certain police post, where some policemen were killed. In retaliating, some civilians were actually caught in that process with regards to the Monday ghost towns. So the bottom line is these persons were not supposed to go out according to the separatists. Now the challenge is, if we look at the institutions created.
Before we get even to the challenge, I would, with all the commendable things that you may have said, tracing the beginning of the eruption of the Anglophone crisis and all of that, and most people are asking themselves, why is it that the civilians are caught in this pressure pot, or they are in the dragnets? Why are they targets? When you can make a point or prove a point as a non-state armed actor without necessarily putting a civilian as target?
Yes, this is another thing. I think I had a presentation on this with regards to your question. Now, if you were to go to, I think, Article 8 or 16 of what constitutes war crimes, if you were to look at the International Criminal Tribunal, to look at what war crime is. Now, according to that, anyone who by any means is aiding the parties involved in conflict is a party to the conflict. Take, for example, to break it down, let's assume that the state security forces met you in the bush where you have the non-state armed on the other side. Now, this is another thing where Cameroonians are trapped, because as per the 2014 law on terrorism, against terrorism, this is where Cameroonians are trapped. The 2014 law states that if you know and you do not open up, you are also caught because you are a culprit. You acted in complacency. Now, why this law states that if you are not a party to the conflict, meaning if you are not a party to the armed conflict, there is no need for you to stand and say on the other side of the camera there is a group of armed men. You have to be neutral. But in the case of Cameroon, the 2014 laws makes it quite complex, in the sense that should the non-state armed group come to a community and it is noticed that you perhaps aided them by telling them to go through this path, that the military is here, of course you are already acting in complacency. You are an accomplice to this. Now, if you should see them and you don't say it,
you're still a culprit. Because
we have seen cases in this conflict, some parents have been remanded. Let me take the case of Bashi Clement and the baby mama Antoinette, who,
with the case of Moja,
good, with the case of Chief Moja, John Ewome. Now, this is what happened. According to John Ewome, Bashi Clement had communication with Antoinette. Bashi Clement is the separatist who is alleged to have been killed in Babisi. Now, the guy you call No Pity. This is what happened. According to the allegations that were brought on Antoinette, you were in communication with Bashi Clement, and you know that Bashi Clement is an enemy to the state of Cameroon. And why did you not tell us where Bashi Clement is? These are the intricacies of that case. This is exactly what it was all about. That she was in communication with Bashi Clement, and Bashi Clement is against the state of Cameroon.
But in this case, don't you think that it becomes very difficult and endangering when the common man, I mean, at the grassroots,
the armless person,
or the armless person would have to, play safe. If I do not report activities of separatists in my neighborhood, I get into government dragnet, and even when I do, I become a victim with the people I'm living with, because these separatist fighters, they are people who live in our communities, they live with us. So in all of this quagmire, how do you find a safe haven in all of this?
This is where the complications comes in. And this is why I say, if you are to look at we are trumpeting that people like Cho Ayaba should be arrested right now, who lives in Norway. He's a Norwegian, no longer a Cameroonian. By the Cameroon law, once you pick up another nationality, you have forfeited your Cameroon nationality. So, at this moment, Cho Ayaba, look at, certainly is not a Cameroonian. Howbeit, he is someone who now incites and funds and
fuels
terrorism in the two English-speaking regions. So, or in the Anglophone regions. So, by this, we are saying that we are trumpeting that he should be arrested in Norway. And if he should be arrested, he should be arrested with regards to the fact that Cameroon is among, I think, the 169 or 160 countries or so, 130 countries that make up the Interpol. We are also a member. So you realize that at this moment, we want to use an international law to have this Norwegian who is actually wreaking havoc on our soil. While on the other hand, we are refusing that the same international law that should protect persons who perhaps whose brothers or children are among the non-state armed groups, but they are not taking part in the hostility. That is, your brother is in the bush, but you are not in the bush and you are not fighting. And we have seen cases in the Northwest where the military arrested some people and they had them tortured because they felt like they were not giving much information with regards to where this family of theirs is. So these are some of the intricacies with the 2014 law on terrorism, and to look at the law on armed conflict, how an armed conflict should be managed, those who are involved in armed conflict, and why persons who are not involved in armed conflict, how do you treat them? Because this is the law.
While we try to settle on that, do you think at this particular point it is very difficult, where a lot of Cameroonians are on the crossroad, to determine who is perpetrating what?
No, at this moment it may sound difficult. The difficulty is not to determine. The difficulty is to openly give up.
But don't you think once it's determined, the culprits are called out, and I think they refrain from such heinous actions?
Yes,
I mean, as a human rights activist, one would expect that you would want to take this to Twitter, put the weight of your voice in writing and condemning strongly in strong terms.
Severally, we have condemned this. Now, if you were to look at the actions of Rere Habet, we have condemned this severally. If you are to look at the actions of the Southwest Union of Human Rights Association, that's SURA, we have condemned this severally. So these are not situations which you think that we have not condemned. As a matter of fact, I have openly said Cho Ayaba, who is not a Cameroonian, should not by any means, because right now the country he claims is their country, that is the virtual country known as the state of Amazonia. This country, for example, I did not see the constitution of the country which gives the people dual nationality. So there are several things which I would say that we have been doing. We have made several reports. We have made several denunciations on many things that has happened, which are still happening. For example, I've just told you, or a while ago I said that the violation or the attack on education when children go to school on Mondays is a total human right violation, and it is a right which under no circumstances we should condone to it, because it is the foundation of a nation. You cannot build a nation where the people are not educated.
Thank you. You cannot build a nation where the people are not educated. And loosely borrowing from the words of the humanitarian on set and human rights activist, Mr. Lucas G, there is a place for education, and of course, giving right to education is absolutely paramount. We get onto a jingle break, and when we come back, we continue the program Matters. Don't go anywhere. Stick to your screen. Immediately after this jingle break, then we are driving on another jet. Don't go anywhere. I'm still your host, Mabel Camden. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and of course it gets a little bit more scrumptious on the program because we know that you're there watching and you're sending in your reactions. We have a plethora of reactions that have reached our studio phones, and of course do not bother, just relax, because we are going to be taking some of these concerns, reading out these questions and your little sense that you've got to contribute on the program. And in case you are just joining in, this is a political debate program Matters, and today I'm live with two giant men who came with bloated minds in order to navigate the subject that we have on board about X-Drain, the sporadic shooting that happened in Kumba, chief town of Meme division, that happened on Monday the 29th. That is what we have as talking point tonight, and of course we are opening our doors and windows of the program to get what you, the viewers, have got to say. Before we got onto a jingle break, we had Mr. Lucas G, who was giving us a lot of faces, and most importantly, telling us the emergence of the Anglophone crisis, which is very, very much important. You know, a lot of people do not know how this surfaced, and each time I have a panelist like you have to travel back in time, you know, to dig deep about how this happened. A lot of people are interested about, you know, in the whole cacophony that is happening, but they don't really find time in tracing how it started and from where it started. So in a nutshell, you've given that, and we're looking at those Cameroonians, innocent Cameroonians,
right,
who are caught up in this crossfire. They are in a crossroad, categorically. Is it at this point? I know I'd asked you this before, but you know, for the sake of emphasis, these are very sensual questions that needs, you know, to be played with a lot of caution for the sake of, you know, educating Cameroonians out there and all are sundry. Is it safe to call out perpetrators at this point? And is it interest as a humanitarian activist to figure out who is, you know, playing the rhythm of this distraction, of this chaos that we are recording in our economy?
Yes, it's very easy, Mabel, to do that. What you have to also accept is the manner in which you have to do it. Now, do not forget that the 2014 law talks about terrorism, and you have to understand how to go about this and who is actually acting and who is supporting terrorism and how do you manage it. Now, we are saying that if there is someone in your community who is a member of the non-state armed groups, right now in the two English-speaking regions, in the Anglophone regions, there are two categories of persons carrying arms: the military and the separatists. The separatists, for several years, 95% of their entire action is destruction. They have had nothing to do with regards to protecting and bringing the people to the country which they have on the social media. Now, how do you go about it? It is quite unfortunate in some places, especially in the two English-speaking regions, where most of the people who have wanted to cooperate with the state security forces as to the hideout or the whereabout of the non-state armed groups, they have been lynched by the non-state armed groups, and some have actually had the information exposed to the non-state armed groups. Mm-hmm. We have seen cases where some people have complained that when we call in the SSF, the state security forces, what will happen is that the non-state armed groups will tell us that they contacted us, that you leaked out that information. We have seen them
and making them victims.
So at the end of the day, the person who wants to bring serenity within that area, peace to that area, is the target. So we have young people within the ranks of the military who are also not helping the situation. Now, I want to say that if you've watched the video on social media where a sister media and its microphone and its cameras were interviewing some of the guys who were arrested in Bamenda a few days ago who are on drugs. If you listen to what that young man said, that he was surprised that this time the military did not come to collect as usual. They came for them. So when he saw them, they did not hesitate because they knew that they would come to collect as usual. Unfortunately, the command had changed. The direction of command had changed. So the previous commander will go and take money, according to that young man. Or maybe he will not command, but the forces that came, they will collect. Because except for the heads that they had replaced, the same persons were the same that went to that area. What am I saying? He went further and recounted that some of these persons will come and sit with them and take the same drugs they are taking. So when you have some of these military guys who also go to receive the same drugs like some of these guys. What would you expect in such situations? That when you call them out and say there is a non-state armed group here or a terrorist as identified by the state of Cameroon here, what would they do? Some of these guys will call to some of these non-state armed groups and say, so and so, or this person X called us that you are here. So it makes it a bit difficult for some of these persons to cooperate. We have seen in the case of My 16, particularly where the community went to the bush to chase away, and they did their best because they wanted to actually
bring normalcy,
remand or apprehend some of these non-state armed groups who were now wreaking havoc.
All that in a bid for what? In a bid for normalcy, because they were in dire.
In the bid of normalcy, because all they were looking for was normalcy. They want their children to go to school. They want to have their own children play on certain days. They want to have their own children go out who are labor.
Will it be safe to say that? Will it be safe to say that for everything that is happening in these communities, a case in point being Kusala in Fiango Kumbameme, that it is good riddance for bad rubbish?
Yes, it is mostly cases like this in some of these situations. So with regards to the situation in Kusala, what basically transpired, we are yet to have the fact, but all we know and all we have seen is the death toll. We have not had any official statement from Tundong Chamberlain yet, except you may want to tell me that. I have not had any official statement from Tundong Chamberlain, who is the divisional officer for Meme, and you know how vocal and rigorous he is as concerning the fight against the non-state armed groups who the state of Cameroon consider as a terrorist. Now, when you look at the situation with which Tundong Chamberlain will fight these guys, take for example the guy who was recently arrested, I think he should be in Dian, one of the fierce non-state armed group, guy who was killed. He was ferried to Kumba and displayed for everyone to see. Similar situation happens to Ayeke, who arrogated the title of the general to himself. We saw the similar case. He was killed in Lebialem, but he was brought to Kumba. So I don't know if Kumba after Buea is the headquarter of other divisions away from Fako, because when things happen in those areas, they are brought to Kumba for almost everyone to see. Anyway. So you realize here that the people in this area, in as much as they want to cooperate, but the other fear is when we cooperate, some of these military guys who have gone out of hand, they will want to rather be the source of information that we give out to them as regarding this. So this is where we say, I call it the amber business. On the other hand, I call it the warpreneurs who are now in active part in the war economy, because you have the warpreneurs, you have the amber businessmen who are now there. Their business involves the cutting off of your head, the chopping off of your hands, all in the quest for you to give them cash. They do those things. While on the other hand, we have the warpreneurs, some of the military guys who, no matter what we see on the ground, some persons will leak out information to you, and the next day what you will hear is this information was leaked out from this direction and this person was attacked. When you did not indeed call two persons, you called only the state security forces line that were available for you to reach out. So this is why sometimes we will say that the people are in the middle of the two elephants who are now fighting. They serve as the ground or the grass on which these elephants are now fighting. When you speak to B, you become the target. You speak to A, you become the target. And if you fail to speak to the state of Cameroon, you are a target. If you fail to speak to the non-state armed groups, you are likewise a target.
And of course, we are yet to get any official statement from the senior divisional officer for Meme, Tundong Chamberlain. But then we have been joined by, a Ganesh who is going to be bringing, his voice, amplifying the subject and, the relevance of what we are discussing today. Mr. Tambe Henry is the president of EYAGLA, whatever that means. You're going to be telling us. You're welcome to Matters this evening. It feels good to have you around again.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. It always feels an honor to be on Matters. EYAGLA, I'll start with EYAGLA. EYAGLA stands for Engaging Young Africans in Governance and Leadership.
Okay.
Because we are looking at a situation where if majority of our youths are in governance and leadership, most of these things we are talking about will not be in place.
Of course, you are one of those gentlemen who actually scare to talk about, crude political issues. Sorry to buzz the bubbles here, but but not because you do not have passion for it, but maybe because for some reason you think it's a messy ground. But for you to have accepted this invitation, I mean, it means a lot to Martins and it means a lot to me. We are looking at the sporadic shooting which claimed the 5 in Meme on the 29th, Monday. And when I gave you this invitation, how did you feel? And being somebody at the helm of youth leadership for governance, do you think the time is now? And what weapon, what transition, what better transition can be inducted for Cameroon to be a safe haven again?
Thank you so much for this question. The first thing I would like to tell you is, as a youth leader and also a civil society actor, we are fighting this fight in all frontiers. Like today, we were at the Elekam Regional Board office discussing on the consultation of the upcoming 2025 elections. Now, one of the reasons you find so many Cameroonians avoiding themselves to talk on acute politics is because the ground are very slippery. You find so many persons who are not honest. If you walk in an honest ground, you always get people who attack you behind. You come on a TV like this, you give good information and you give good knowledge, and people tend to target you for that. So one thing we are telling Cameroonians is the country, what I believe is why I'm here today, I believe that Cameroon belongs to all of us.
That's right.
Cameroon belongs to all of us. What people don't understand are part of civil status. The same entitlement that Our Excellency has is the same entitlement that I have.
As a Cameroonian?
Yes, as a Cameroonian. If there is anything I will do or I should do to make the country a better place, I'm ready to do it. But it should not be at the detriment of my own life. Though some people go extra mile, why should you be fighting a good cause and end up taking your own life? So you see, because we have so many uncertainty that we don't know and we cannot talk about. So those are some of the reasons that you see some of us avoiding acute political debate.
Okay, with the gory incident which happened on Monday, I mean, you can't play any safer because we are here to talk about it. And as a humanitarian and as a political youth anchor, you would want to, be a little bit vocal about this incident which happened. On Monday, it was actually a bloody scene down there. Do you think that we have come at a point where peace is an absolute neglect in Cameroon? Do you think we have derailed? There is a school of thought which thinks that, or which is echoing that I think there is a return of peace and normalcy, while there are others at the extreme end thinking that the thing or the socio-political and conflict is getting even more derogatory than it appears to be, than what meets the eye. So of which opinion are you, and what is the way forward for the peace talk to be even more engaging?
Okay, I think as my senior co-panelists have said, so many people have taken this crisis as a business. It didn't start it like this. So, if I want to say anything concerning what happened in Kumba some days ago, I would like to say that it's not the first time, neither is it the second time. And like Mr. Nj said, if Kumba has any specific importance why something will happen at the northwest, they will take it to Kumba, or it happened here, they will take it to Kumba. You would like to know that in history, Kumba was one of our main figures when it comes to town, and Kumba holds some certain things as far as Southwest region is concerned, and also as far as this crisis is concerned. Remember, along the, let me say, Moyoka Kumba route has suffered a lot, let me say even 90% as far as this crisis is concerned, damages. if you go along that stretch of road, most of you who have not been there for a very long time, you see bullets in buildings.
Almost
But
all
you,
the buildings.
yes, you
Almost
can
all of
hardly
them.
find out in some of this area around Boya and Limbe.
Which means this is a safe haven.
It's not actually a safe haven because there are some people here who have also suffered
Of course, the
consequences
brunt-
of
the brunt
yes,
of the crisis.
The crisis. Now, what I would first of all like to say as a civil society actor on what has happened in Kumba is that we denounce it. We denounce it. No matter the quest, no matter the request of what you're looking for, it doesn't suffice you taking the lives of people. It doesn't.
Now, do you even think, I think this is almost tallying with what I was trying to ask Mr. Angie Lucas, about people condemning such atrocious acts in high terms. And do you think those things are getting even more deepening and infiltrating more into our local economy, neighborhoods, and all the living spaces, because we do not have a strong voice denouncing these atrocities, and we have not, mobilized ourselves enough to chase these non-state armed group actors away from our communities?
Yeah, I think that is one of the reasons. I will give you some examples. There are communities that came together, said enough is enough. From the traditional ruler, from the state actors, from civil society, and they sat down, they say we don't want anything concerning.
I think Mile 16 is a case in point, a glaring case in point.
So I think if Kumba in particular, with their paramount ruler, who is also a vocal person, can do that in all entirety, is going to help, because this has happened again. We don't know if it is the last one. We don't know the next that is coming.
That's right.
And what we can say, fear is a target. I remember one of the security meeting we attended at the Boya Council. The paramount ruler of Boya said, fear is more dangerous than that gun. Because if you are afraid, he's living in my 16. For the past 7 years of this crisis, I'm living in packs in my 15. One time I remember I had a debate. They said, no, most of you on the WhatsApp group, these guys from Douala, I told them, see, you people don't understand what is going on. I live
In
with
ground
these guys.
zero, you live with
I
a
live
reality.
these guys. You are leaving your house, they know that you are leaving your house.
Of course.
So there is nothing you can tell me better than who I am on ground. So the paramount ruler said one of the reasons to challenge these fears is not to be afraid.
It's to challenge fear.
To challenge fear, which is the need. Because who are you even afraid of? Who are you afraid of? Once in a while, we have seen guys in my 16 coming to town with guns and things on their hands and their waist and their legs. They call themselves non-state arms group. But who gave them that authority? Why should you be afraid of them?
While that remains a rhetorical question, I think that is, a very big puzzle, because this is involving not just an individual lives, but the lives of even families. How difficult it is to challenge fear.
Yeah.
Does it stem from just an individual challenging the fear or mobilizing with several others?
Let me just say something there. When it comes to this issue of Black Leg, this is what I've noticed. And one of the accolades I would like to give here, if there is nothing good in Cameroon, the Cameroon military is making us proud. Then secondly, when it comes to the non-state armed group, this is one thing I've noticed, and this is why I'm not afraid. These guys, they have their targets. Now, it became around 2018, 2019 that the aspect of Black Leg was very high on the pit. You want to see it, you
People are massacred.
Yes. So I noticed something. It happened here when I was still living around Nexter, behind Nexter. They came to our quarter, past my door, past this door, went and took somebody.
By day, who are you referring to?
This non-state armed group.
Okay.
So they took that guy to the bush. Now the idea is, it means they are not just after any any other ordinary person or any other kind of
after
person.
specific people.
Yes, they have their target, they have their specifications, and they have their goals. Maybe they come after you because of your money. They ask you for money and you say you don't have. They come after you. Maybe they come after you for leaking out a certain information that pertain of importance to them. You get it? In as much as in everything in life they have excesses. And these are some of the excesses that when we sit here on the media, we cry and we decry over it.
I think we have a caller on the line. We lost that one. Please, you have to pardon us. Do not beep on the program. Just call. Be rest assured that after a few seconds we are going to pick the call, and this is just a subtle reminder that our lines are open for calls and messages, just in case you want to drop your little opinion or ask a question as far as trailing the subject is concerned. Over to you, Mr. Angelucas. I'm still within that space of challenging fear. As easy as it sounds, but it is even more complex than we tend to say it, verbally. How do you tend to challenge fear and challenge the imposters and challenge the non-state armed groups if they are the targets that we are talking about?
To he that knows how to do good and doeth it not, to him is a sin. It's a Bible quote.
Yeah.
If I fail to do that which is right, it's a sin. I think this is where the Cameroon government adopted and crafted the 2014 law on terrorism and sent it to the bill and sent it to the parliament for it to be voted. To he that knows how to do good and fails to do it, to him is a sin. Yeah. It is the same thing in my neighborhood. If I see my neighbors fighting, and should someone die because I thought I was not going to report, when the police comes, I'm the first person, I'm the first suspect. You have to get me for questioning. I'm the primary suspect because of the death of that person. So what is most important is you have to now identify. The Bible also says, to he that wins a soul is wise. Permit me with so many quotations, okay? To he that wins a soul is wise. Now, how do you go about winning the soul? I think it is what you may want to know. Yes, it's simple to win a soul. How do you challenge fear? There is a way you communicate. We have toll-free numbers in the country.
Which is?
You have the toll-free number
which is accessible
of the gendarme. You have the toll-free number of the Cameroon Human Rights Commission.
But are you going to be just to say that most vulnerable Cameroonians who have actually called those toll-free numbers have been attended to judiciously?
If you call 1523, they will attend to you. Yeah. That's the human rights number.
Yeah. We are not talking about human rights. With all the cases in point.
I'm coming. Of course, I understand you do not know the mandate of the Cameroon Human Rights Commission. Now, if you should call my number, I'll attend to you.
Okay.
Because I know what you are into and I know how we can target it. If you call 1523 that the non-state armed groups are in your neighborhood, someone is going to direct to you or direct you how to get yourself saved, your family, and someone will get to that community to save these people. To he that wins a soul is wise. If we say that you should challenge fear, we are not saying that you should see that junkie.
And you stand up.
You see that junkie who comes with all the musanga, all the fetish and every other thing you know on him, and carries an AK-47 or M23, and you walk up to him and you tell him, I'm not afraid of you. Of stupidity at its peak. You need to know how to go about it when things like
so
this.
While challenging fear, wisdom is applied.
While challenging fear, you have to understand how to go about it, because fear being a factor, Jesus will teach the people. I'm sorry, my inspirations are coming from, and the facts are coming from one of the highest people. Yes, Jesus says one of the things the devil will use, your enemy is fear. So how do you go about it? You need to have knowledge to combat fear. So once you have the knowledge to combat fear, it will be the wisdom for you to use to communicate. If I want to speak to Tambe, there is a way I'm going to speak to him. Perhaps they know him in his environment as Tambe, and I'll rather call him the president of Eyagla, because I understand that there is something when I mention it triggers him, it awakens that. If I call him Tambe, he knows it's a normal thing. If I call him the president of Eyagla, he knows
that's ego massaging.
Good. You get it? It now works on his ego. I'm now massaging his ego. Now he will respond to me differently. So to he that wins a soul is wise. To he that knows how to do good and fails to do it, to him is a sin. And authorities are put in place by God, and we have to respect them. So these are quotations. These are Bible quotations. So you need to know when to use them. Now, coming back to this in plain terms, you should identify how to communicate to your fear for it to leave, because there are things that will happen to you that you will not be comfortable with, and they are very frightful. And because they are frightful, you need to identify how to communicate and take yourself out of that situation. So we will not continue living in the 2 English-speaking regions because we have persons who have gone north and they think you must go by what they desire. Let me tell you something. In 2019, a set of military people met me in my neighborhood, my 16. They were chasing the non-state armed groups. I had a meeting with parents whom I have convinced, I've been convincing for long to have a meeting with them to see reasons with me why children should go to school. Why in the meeting? I heard gunshots. I could not trace the direction of the gunshot, that's the people, but I could get the sound. And you know, sometimes it could echo, so you might not know the exact direction. So when I heard this gunshot, some parents who were in the meeting with me took on their heels and left. And I could not run because it is my own way. I don't run without knowing what I'm running for, or what I'm running at. Now, at the end of the day, I stood on that same spot where I was talking to this parent. The military came and said, "Where are the non-state armed groups? Where are the Amber?" Then I told them I've not seen Amber. They said, "What are you doing here? Everyone is running. Why are you here?" I said, "They are running." I had a meeting with them to tell them why children should not be kept in the house, why they have to go to school. And because of their gunshot, they are discouraged the more.